Around 1/3 of the food produced globally for human consumption is wasted. In dollar terms, that's almost $1 trillion US. To put it in context, food waste is a bigger contributor to greenhouse gas emissions than the entire aviation industry. Now, one possible counter to this wastage problem is a new type of freezing, one without crystal ice formation. I'm joined now by someone who knows a great deal about how this all works. Paul Levins joins us now, co-founder of Evercase. Paul, welcome. It's great to have you with us today. Tell us a little bit about the science behind freezing without formulating ice crystals and why that is so important.
Oriel, it's great to join you, and thanks for your interest. So essentially this technology intervenes between the freezer and the material that you want to freeze. So essentially what that means is that this device does not do any actual freezing itself. It works with freezing technology and refrigeration technology. And it uses electric fields and pulsating magnetic fields to be able to keep the contents of the Evercase, as we call it, in a state of very minute amount of motion, so that the water molecules inside of the food, or the biologicals as well, which is another application, want to freeze but don't, want to freeze but don't. So they're in this constant, very minute amounts of agitation that lead to ice crystals not being able to form in the first instance. Now, as you rightly point out, ice crystals are really problematic for freezing. Freezing's been a fantastic technology, particularly in relation to food preservation. So it has existed for about 165 years as a technology that's looked after our food and other biologicals. But it has this issue with it, which is that when you freeze food, the water molecules in it form ice crystals, and it then punctures the cells within the structure of the food, and that causes the food to become irreversibly damaged. So the best way you could see this at home is when you thaw something, that sort of puddle that you see around fish or steak or sometimes vegetables as well. That's as a result of the ice crystals puncturing the cells and the goodness and moisture leaching out. So that is what this technology does. It intervenes between the freezer and the item that you want to freeze in order to make sure that it stays fresh as opposed to frozen.
So, Paul, this all sounds incredible, when it comes to freezing food and actually not damaging the food. How far advanced is the technology as we sit right now?
Yeah, so it's been the subject of 9 years of research at the University of Hawaii, and it's had about 20 prototypes done on it. So, science is never sorted, but this is about as sorted as it will reach before commercialisation.
So is this kind of technology scalable? And I suppose, when it comes to new developments and new innovation in technology, they're often very expensive to transition between the two. So, is it scalable and is it feasible at cost?
Yeah, they're great questions. So to add on to your previous question before we get to that one, so it is quite early stage technology, but when you see this technology at work, retailers, producers, even consumers sort of say this is a technology that we have needed because it fixes the issues that have to do with freezing that we've identified. In terms of its capability to be able to be commercialised and get larger, absolutely. We're in the process of actually working out how you can operate this at container level scale. We've had numerous strong interest from logistics companies in the cold supply chain that want to see that capacity to be able to manage an entire reefer or container, as well as having devices that can be rolled into walk-in freezers and so on. And then at that smaller scale, at residential scale, I think all of us have got those freezers and refrigerators that have the drawer in the freezer compartment, right? This would work perfectly as a drawer in that freezer compartment, which would be your drawer for supercooling, or the brand name Evercase. And so those are the marketplaces that we're targeting. And as I said, we're getting really strong interest. And I think the market has matured in this space, right? I think they have known for a long while that there is this problem with wastage focused around the amount of time that we can keep something in a refrigerator, but then the damage that's done when we freeze something, which gives us longer life. And so there is really strong interest and investment in scaling this technology so that we can reap its benefits across the supply chain.
So take us one step further, Paul. Once this is commercially viable and it's out there and we're using that in whatever form that looks like, what comes next?
Yeah, so I think what comes next is a revolution in the way that we manage fresh food. So at the moment, if we ship something a long way, we're having to either freeze that if we put it on a ship, or we're having to chew up, air miles and all the energy that produces and greenhouse gases that produce in flying it somewhere. And the holds of planes are fairly limited in their capacity. So I think what comes next, as I said, is a revolution in our ability to be able to not only transport existing foods, but foods that we can't freeze now. Things that don't freeze well at all. Stone fruits, tomatoes, cheese, these sorts of things that we just cannot freeze without doing the substantial damage that mean that we as consumers don't want to purchase it, so we discard it. And so this technology, I think, will be resident in all of those stages of the supply chain, both at the producer level, where the producer can place items and reduce even that degradation in the food. So, incredibly, Oriel, if you look at leafy greens, which is a huge category for wastage, right? So you mentioned the 30% of food waste globally. In a category like leafy greens, it's closer to 50 and 60% of all of the leafy greens that we produce gets discarded.